Hi guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel today. Thank you for being here, and as always, if you are new here and you are interested in true crime cases, unsolved cases, mysteries, tarot readings, please consider liking and subscribing. And for those of you who come back every week, I thank you. I also want to put out there a reminder that private tarot readings are always available. I will have my email in the description as well as the comment section. I'll go ahead and pin it to the top. All you have to do is email me, and readings are done exactly the same as I do these videos. They are recorded, and they are about probably the same length of time, maybe even a little bit longer. But I record them and then I upload them to YouTube, but I upload it as an unlisted video, which just means you are the only one that can view it. I send you the link, I email it to you, and I send you the link. And unless you share that link with someone, no one else can view that video but you. And it stays up there permanently if you want, so you can go back and you can watch it as many times as you want. Or if you wanted me to remove it for any particular reason, I would do that in a heartbeat. But you don't have to make an appointment. It's not a face-to-face or anything like that. So you just set it up, and then I usually do it within a day. I can have it done. And then I as soon as it's uploaded, I send you that link, and so you can watch it at whatever time is convenient for you. So that's how the private tarot readings are done. So if you're interested, please email me and I will get back to you immediately. All right, so for today's reading, someone had suggested, I've gotten quite a few suggestions from many of you, and I appreciate it, and I have them all written down, and I plan on getting to all of them. Today's reading was the first not the first suggestion, but it was an early suggestion, and it is going to be about Jack the Ripper. So, to be honest with you, I don't really know anything about Jack the Ripper except the basics. It's never been, I don't want to say interesting, but I've never really gotten into the whole story of Jack the Ripper, so I kind of had to do a little bit of, I wasn't even sure of where it took place. I knew it took place in London. I knew it was in the 1800s, but that was the extent of it. I didn't know about the 5 victims, the brutality of the victims, or what this person was doing to these women. I had no history on the background of the women. So for those of you who aren't familiar, this was a crime that took place in East London. I believe it was Whitechapel at that time. I think it was 1888. Hold on. I have to double check. I believe we are talking about 1888. I just want to make sure. Yes. Between the months of August and November 1888, the Whitechapel area of London was the scene of 5 brutal murders. The killer was dubbed Jack the Ripper. All of the women murdered were prostitutes, and all except for one, Elizabeth Stride, were horribly mutilated. I don't think that the killer was dubbed Jack the Ripper. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, he sent a letter to the police, and I think he signed it Jack the Ripper, and that is how he got his name. But that is just something that I read quickly earlier today, so I don't even know if that's accurate, but nonetheless, that is what we've referred to him even still to this day as Jack the Ripper. So I have a couple of questions written down, and I know that there have been some theories about who it could have been. There's some suspects, some named suspects. And every so often it appears that someone will come forward with a book claiming that they have solved the mystery, that they know who it is. So I do want to ask if any of these authors of any of these books are accurate, if one of them have actually solved this crime and figured out who this person is. I've also read that it could be potentially a female and not a male. Could it be more than one killer? Was it a group of people working together? A lot of interesting things once I started digging into it, and I was like, oh, okay, I can see why this is a really interesting topic. I just never really dug into it enough to kind of gain interest. And once I started digging today, it was interesting. So the first pull that I want to do is I just want to get, well, first of all, I want to find out if this is a male or female. And immediately, just by feeling alone, I feel like we're talking about a man. But let's see what the cards say. So, Jack the Ripper, a male or a female? All right. Interesting. So we've got the Sun reversed and we've got the Fool reversed. So I do think it's a man, okay, just because the two images, and I don't always go by that, but the two images in both of these cards are male. And I do believe that there was something in this person or this man's childhood that led him to be how he was. All right, so this is somebody young. So, I'm looking at this as his childhood, and for whatever reason, it wasn't this. Okay, it wasn't bright, and it wasn't sunny, and it wasn't wonderful, and it wasn't loving. So there's something that happened. And I'm also going to look at just the fact that this child on this horse is not wearing any clothes. Now, a lot of times that can represent rebirth, renewal, freedom, all those good things. But in this case, I have to wonder if that also plays a role. Is there something going on? Was this a man that was potentially abused? Was he abused as a child? Is there something along those lines that's going on that led to his behavior later on? And then we have the Fool, which again, in this case, I feel like he has a tendency to be reckless. And that would explain why he was so willing to kill these women, even though it was at night and he was in a not so great side of town. But there were patrol officers. I don't necessarily know how they did their policing, but from what I can tell is that they did it from more of a preventative angle than proactive per se. So they had patrol officers that would walk around and kind of just do, like what you would expect a campus officer to do these, nowadays. They just kind of walk around and make sure everything's good to go. So I don't know if maybe he had a schedule, if he knew when these patrol officers would be at any certain time, at any place at any certain time, and he would just act at that time and it was random. But I don't necessarily think a whole lot of planning went into it based on this. I think that it was almost like he enjoyed the thrill, and he even enjoyed the thrill of possibly getting caught, something that that would excite him. Okay, just with this, he liked being on the edge. He liked living on the edge like that. So that was part of his personality as well. All right, so I definitely want to go with the fact that it was a man, and I want to know why he chose the victims that he chose. What is it about these women? Now, as I said, they were prostitutes, and that could be for and what he did to them was brutal. Okay, so was it internal anger that he had? I already feel like there's something going on in his childhood that could have possibly created some anger inside of him. Are there mother issues? I'm curious to see if the Empress or any of the queens are going to come out, because that would kind of indicate, was his mother, was she, I don't know if I want to say I'll just say the P word. Was his mother a P word? What was she part of that? And he had issues with his mother. Something along those lines. That's what I think we're kind of headed to. Okay, the Devil. So why he chose the victims that he chose. Oh, he had a lot of issues. Yeah, he was really messed up. Okay, we've got the Queen of Pentacles. So we do have a female. Let me do one more. Okay. The Hierophant. So just with the Hierophant really quickly, I feel like there was something off about him that necessarily he didn't necessarily blend into society like what we normally would expect. Sometimes when these killers are out there committing these crimes, they blend in and they're able to get away with it because they blend in so well. They don't look like what you would expect a killer to look like. And I feel like this is the opposite in his case, because this did come out reversed. There could be some aspect to religion as well. This is the Hierophant after all, so there could be some religious aspects. Maybe there was some issues with the religion of the women, or I don't know. There's something here going on with religion and society as a whole, but not in a good way. And immediately the first one that comes up to me is the fact that he did seem kind of off, I think, to people. There was something about him that made people uncomfortable. He wasn't just that natural blender in with everybody around him, and he just looked like the average Joe. I think he had some characteristics about him that stood out. And I don't think he really got along with people. He was kind of a loner. This is that I've got to win no matter what kind of card. And, it's sword, so it's air, so it can be words, thoughts, minds, and I feel like he definitely had this, he liked to live on the edge and he liked to be reckless, but part of that was just the fact that he almost maybe even felt like he was invincible, like there was no one who could catch him. He had this air about him that I can do whatever I want because, whether it's because I feel I'm smarter or, I just can outwit the police and people. But there was something like that about him. And I do believe that with this one here, he also had a problem with other people, period. This would have been somebody who, I think that this actually kind of eliminates the possibility that this was more than one person. So I think that, this here was something people have thought about, is that it could have been 3 people. I don't think so. I think we are dealing with one person, because I don't think that this is a team player type individual, and he would not be able to, that wouldn't work with him and a couple of other people. So I do actually think that he was working alone. And again, we've got the Queen of Pentacles, so there is something going on with female, and there's something going on with money. So could his mother have been a P? Could she have been a worker like that? I'll just say worker. P sounds stupid. Could his mother been a worker? Okay. And did it for money? Because when I looked up these women, the 5 victims that are known, to have been for sure victims of Jack the Ripper, they weren't just single women. A lot of them had children, or I don't want to say a lot, but I think there was at least 1 or 2 that had children, that they were doing this to take care of their children. It was almost like a job. It wasn't like they were just living in some brothel just doing their thing. I mean, they were like women with children that they were trying to provide for. And so it makes me feel like there could have been something going on with his mother, because this coming out reversed is, to me, a lack of finances, or a lack of being comfortable, a lack of having wealth, a lack of having money. And so she is really looking down on it. She values it. She's paying, this is something that I feel like his mother did not have. And so could she have been involved in that way of life? And then we have that reverse sun card. I feel like something happened in his childhood. So I think that we're dealing with some deeper inner issues that he was dealing with that they probably weren't thinking of back in 1888. But I think that was a factor. And then we have, the devil. So that kind of really is self-explanatory. He had some issues. He had some severe issues. He had a lot of mental issues, and that's obvious, right? We're talking about Jack the Ripper, but we have the 9 of Swords reversed. And so when it comes out reversed, to me, it means that it wasn't something that he was dealing with or coping with very well. If it comes out like this, it's like, yeah, you've got a lot of issues, but you are working on them, or you're putting some effort, or or there's a, hope that you can conquer these things that you're dealing with. But if it comes out like this, and we're talking about someone in 1888, I feel like he had several things that he was dealing with on a mental level, and he had been dealing with it for his entire life, and he never was able to deal with that. He was never able to cope. So this is somebody that had a severe potential mental illness, and never, I don't know if he didn't recognize it, but he fed it with these things. Okay, he fed it with these things. It came out in anger and brutality, and just, and there's something here. Again, we've got more nudity, so there's something here with, I think, sexuality and anger and frustration. And then you couple that with these mental problems that he was dealing with, I think, his entire life, and you've really got a disaster. You've got a ticking time bomb. And I think that's what he was at that time. And then we have the Chariot. So the Chariot, I'm looking at this as, kind of transportation. I'm also looking at the curtain around the Chariot. He's got a curtain around the Chariot, and it makes me think of his cape. That's what I was looking at. And then on the curtain, we have stars, and it's like a blue curtain with stars. And so that makes me feel like, to him, his cover was the darkness. That was his cover. That was his only cover. And, well, not his only cover, because this man is also wearing protective gear, right? He's got his little, whatever you call it, his metal suit on. So this is, to me, a card that is talking about his disguise, so to speak, and how he would go out under the cover of darkness, how he could potentially be covering himself with certain clothing. I know that he, I guess when you look at the pictures of Jack the Ripper, you always see these images of this cape and the, flying in the background. And so I do think that that was something that he obviously did use to disguise himself. And it worked. He that was what he used, and it worked. What else do we have here? Definitely at night. I think that he could have definitely potentially worn a cap or a hat. But, it's coming out reversed, so we've got to keep that in mind too. It makes me feel like, it almost makes me feel like somebody knew who he was. Like somebody, because this is a card that makes me feel like he felt that he was disguised enough to get away with it. But this is like a card that's blocked. You're kind of stuck. You're not going forward. This is like a movement forward card. And so with it coming out reversed, it makes me feel like there was some sort of blockage. There was something that hindered him, or an obstruction in his path of some sorts. And so I don't know. One of the questions that I have planned is, why did he stop after 5? If he even is responsible for only 5. But a lot of people have wondered, did he die? Did he get killed? Was he arrested? Did something happen? What made him stop all of a sudden? And this card coming out makes me feel like that could be more potentially towards the end, because I almost feel like with this one here, he tried to disguise himself, and it worked. It worked to an extent, but somebody recognized him. Someone knew who he was. And that could also potentially be why he stopped as well. That's a unique one. I don't know. And then we have the Knight of Cups. So again, this is kind of, I know it, honestly, I feel like with the word knight, I've never done this before, but the Knight of Cups, when I said Knight of Cups, I literally thought of the night, the nighttime, the time of day, night. This is somebody who worked under the cover of darkness. That was his area. He knew that area, I think, forward and backwards. He knew every corner, and he was kind of I don't want to say the king of the streets, but he was like the knight of the streets, okay? I mean, he knew everything, and he was able to get away with all those things that he was able to get away with under the cover of darkness and physical disguise with his clothing. But this is also kind of a card where I think romance, okay? I think of the white horse and the prince on a white horse. And then I'm starting to kind of go back into that idea of, were there women problems? Were there child problems, mother problems that led later on to life to women problems that led later on to him actually acting out in complete chaos? Okay, because this is also coming out reversed. And so this makes me feel like there were, for lack of better terms, romantic issues. So maybe he was the type of person that would get turned down, you know, because this is, again, it's like he's headed there, right? But for some reason, he's not obtaining what he's looking for, or it's not happening fast enough, or it's just not happening at all. And so I feel like there could be a lot of issues that he has dealt with over the years of his entire life, starting from when he was very young, and then trying to engage in relationships. For whatever reason, it didn't work. You know, he was denied, or he was turned away, or whatever the case may be. I feel like there's also something about the way he appeared financially, or not financially, sorry. I feel like there's something about the way he appeared physically, because I don't think he necessarily blended in to regular society. I think that there was something off about his physical appearance that could potentially have been a turnoff to women, and that could also have an impact on it as well, because to me there's something weird about him, and I think all of that just was like an inner turmoil, and he just came out, you know, in an evil way. And then the Two of Cups. So we have the Two of Cups. So again, that's kind of like a relationship card, right? And it makes me feel like there was someone of the opposite sex that he did care about at one point. Now, whether or not that lasted, whether it didn't, I don't feel like it did, because it smashed right in between the Nine of Swords and the Temperance card reversed. So I feel like this is an indication that this relationship here wasn't peaceful. It had its issues. There could have been a relationship, but there were some issues, and he wasn't at peace with it. It just wasn't a good fit or a good match. And so I'm not even, and I don't think that this indicates like a marriage or anything. I think that this could have been just a female that he, or someone that he was interested in. Not necessarily a wife, because I don't feel like he was married. And if he was, it was not a good marriage at all. It was like this type of relationship. And then we have the Eight of Wands. So that Eight of Wands makes me feel like potentially we're talking about more than 5 women. Not necessarily 8, but I kind of feel like this is more than 5 victims. I think that the 5 victims that they know about, I think that there's more, to be honest with you. I really do, because I think that they were all done together, like they were obviously done together in a short amount of time, but I feel like there was more done in that short amount of time. But this does kind of show the back to back, you know, almost like a weekly thing. I don't know what the exact scheduling was, how many times he went out to kill, or how close the murders were in time. But I feel like there were more than what we realize. Okay. And then I want to... Okay, so... Alright, so I do want to ask if he had some sort of a medical background. Medical background. So now we got the Lovers. Okay, we've got the Lovers, but then we have this card next to it. So that tells me that there were definitely some relationship issues with someone. Thought about leaving. Okay. So then we have the Ten of Swords. So the Ten of Swords. Medical background, medical background. Got the Three of Cups, Two of Wands. With that Two of Wands, I feel like he could have been... It's almost like maybe he wanted to pursue something in the medical field, but was not able to. So the knowledge could be there from reading books or, studying or something along those lines. But with that Ten of Swords, I don't think that he had formal education of how to do medical things. It was kind of, this to me is, there's some order to it, but not really. So yeah, he knew how to do some basic things, I think, but this was something that I think he wanted to pursue, but like I said, with it being reversed, he was not able to do so. Maybe it was something that was just, maybe it was something that would require travel or something that he just could not make a decision on or didn't, for whatever reason. I feel like with the Three of Cups reversed, and possibly this woman, maybe this female figure, I don't know, there's something going on with whatever in his life that did not allow for him to pursue an education. And it could have something to do also with a relationship. We've got two women here, potentially, possibly a relationship, possibly a mother, that somehow played a role in him not pursuing a medical career. But I don't feel like he was a professional, like doctor, for example. So I do think that he had some experience, though. Just basic experience that he got himself. So let me pull out another deck. Let me do the Heaven and Earth. And I want to ask that question again. Did he have a medical background? Was there any kind of medical background? No, I really don't think... I think that whatever he did or what was able to do with these victims, it was more of a self-taught. It wasn't anything that he acquired. And I think that his emotional self, he just wasn't emotionally equipped to be a physician or a doctor or anything like that. He had a lot of issues going on. And then, again, the first thing I thought of when I seen this was that cape. So he did use that cape. This cape is exactly what I believe that there are a couple of witnesses that claim that they may have seen him or did see him. And obviously that cape is synonymous with Jack the Ripper. And so this coming out with this card is kind of like, wow. I do believe this is him. This is him. I mean, I feel like this over here, this city is Whitechapel. And perhaps he is, we've got a body of water, but it's not very far. It's just across the water a little bit. Could he have lived in a neighboring town? I feel like he knew this city very well, though. He was familiar with this city, but he may not have lived exactly in that area. However, he was very close. And he this is a person who is disguised. You can't see his face. You cannot see his face. And that kind of, I feel like somebody knew him because of maybe I think the person who suspected that it was him was someone from his own personal private life that knew him and knew how his behavior and his emotional and mental state was and maybe assumed it was him. But I don't think any of the witnesses seen his face. I would be shocked if the witnesses seen his face just because of the fact that he's turned away from us. So I think that they might have seen a side profile maybe, or a little bit of his hair, or something along those lines. I think somebody said that they claimed that they could see a mustache. maybe they could see the side of the mustache, but I don't think that the witnesses who came forward really seen too much of anything. But I think that somebody knew who he was, and it very well could have been somebody in his own life that suspected him of being Jack the Ripper. But I do again, this is a very, the Five of Cups can represent severe depression in some cases. And so I do think that this was somebody who was definitely going through a lot of things and had been going through a lot of things for a very long time. All right. So I want to ask, how was he able to avoid being caught? And again, we've talked about him working under the cover of darkness. He disguised himself. I think he knew the area very well. And then, of course, some of this is, it's just common sense, right? We know that this is 1888. They did not have DNA at that time or forensics or anything like that. So it was pretty much, if you weren't caught in the middle of committing a crime, unless you were to admit to it, there really wasn't much they could do. They're not going to just go and arrest somebody if they don't, if they don't know for sure. So I think that it was really hard in that time to get caught, really, unless you were caught in the act. So let's keep all that in mind. Okay, and we have the Empress, so definitely, I think, mother issues. All right, the Ace of Pentacles. We've got that Sun reversed again. The Ace of Cups reversed. The Four of Wands this time. So how was he able to avoid being caught? How was he able to avoid being caught? All right, the King of Cups. So again, I think that just with the sun coming out reversed, what's the opposite of the sun? It's the moon, right? And so I think that darkness was a factor. That was a factor, plain and simple. He was able to kind of not be seen. And I think that he was able to hide. He was literally, I'm looking at this building here, the Four of Wands. Literally, I'm thinking of what Whitechapel looks like in my mind, from the images that I've seen from that era. And I'll put it up on the screen if I can remember too. But you've got lots of little corners and crevices and little places that you could probably hide easily. And I don't know what their lighting system was like. I don't know if they had street lights. It was probably candle light. I don't know. But I think that really worked in his favor. And he really used that to his advantage. He knew the area, and he was, I think, just familiar enough to be able to avoid these police officers that were on patrol at that time. And that could also be, again, just common sense. I mean, if these guys, if he was watching these men or these police officers and knowing how long it took them to, walk around this area, maybe it takes 30 minutes. He knows that he has 30 minutes to work. So I think that just kind of played in his favor. And then, we've got the doorway. We've got this doorway here that is staring us in the face. We've got a bright red door on kind of a gray building, and it has an archway. We've got an archway here, and there's something there with the archway and the door and the path. And so it makes me feel like, was there a place that he went to? Was there a place that he had access to that he could go to quickly so that he would not be out on the street? One of the things that I read is people were assuming it could have been a woman, maybe a midwife, because obviously this person would be bloody after this attack or this murder. So how would they walk away all bloody and not be noticed? So it depends. I mean, if you're talking about, England, 1888 with no street lights, and you're wearing a black cape, I think that's also too why the cape was a huge benefit to him, because he used that to cover himself afterwards. So it's very possible that he would take that cape off, okay, like here, I'm looking at that. So it's very, very possible that he took the cape off and then committed the crime and went and got the cape and used that to, again, cover all of the blood and everything that you would expect would be on him. And then, of course, this cloth here is red. So I really kind of associate that with blood. So I think that he was able to hide that blood. And then we've got the red door. So we've got someplace here. There was an opportunity. I look at doors as opportunities, new beginnings. This to me could potentially mean that there was a place that he could go into, or, I don't think he lived in that area. I think that he wasn't very far away, but or maybe even, I think he was possibly in London, but maybe on a different side of town. But there was some place there that he was able to, I think he had access to go to get off the street afterwards, if that makes sense. And that could also explain why he stayed in that area. He could have stayed in that area simply because he had access to certain things in that area, a location perhaps, to go in and clean up or change his clothes, come out, put his cape on, whatever. That could also explain why when victims were found supposedly shortly after they were murdered, and a lot of people were questioning how could he have gotten away that fast without somebody seeing him. It would make sense if he was able to go inside of a building. Was there a church? Was there something that was accessible to the public at that time? I don't know. I don't know how it was at that time. I don't know if there were churches in Whitechapel. Was there a building that was open to the public that he could have simply had went into and changed his clothes or cleaned up or did something, or avoided going out in the public and maybe hid out for a while until everybody kind of went away, and then he left and went on about his thing. But this makes me feel like there was some sort of refuge for him to go into, and so I think that helped also to avoid being caught. And then we have the King of Cups. So the King of Cups, to me, I don't necessarily feel like we're talking about him. I feel like we're talking about the authorities at this point in time. So, this is a cup, and this makes me feel like, maybe the person that was in charge of the investigation, if there was even an investigation, I'm not sure, but sometimes this King of Cups can represent drinking to me, okay, or for me. So it could have been just that the person in charge, I'm kind of getting a feeling that the person in charge of this investigation just wasn't capable emotionally to deal with this level of a crime. And again, like I said, we have other things going on, like the fact that there was just no forensic type investigations. This was 1888. So, but I feel like there could have been other factors at play as well. There could have been drinking. It could have been somebody who was, having other problems, a drinking problem, and wasn't capable of dealing with this emotionally, or was too emotional. I don't know, but there's something here with emotions, possibly drinking. And this is, to me, not Jack the Ripper, but the person that was in charge of the investigation, because the question is, how was he able to avoid getting caught? And I think part of that falls on the law enforcement as well. And it's not all of their fault, because it was just the time, it was the era. But I think that there were some issues with authority figures as well that were kind of, it just wasn't, this Ace of Cups, to me, it was almost, the way this is overflowing, it's almost like it was way out of their hands. That's the way I'm looking at it, way out of their hands. I'm seriously looking at that hand, and I'm watching the water overflow, and I literally hear it was out of their control, it was out of their hands, it was out of their reach. They could not deal with this kind of crime. It was just too much for them, too many things happening at once. It was just overwhelming, okay? They did not have enough, enough of anything to be able to, whether it be patrol officers, whether it be enough information, enough eyewitnesses, and anything. They didn't have enough to solve this crime or these crimes or find out who this person was. And again, I feel like with the Ace of Pentacles, not only does the archway and the door kind of feel like this was his way of hiding and getting away, but I feel with this Ace of Pentacles being reversed, again, it was like whatever was given to them wasn't enough. It just wasn't enough. I look at that pentacle in that hand as information that was given to them by supposed witnesses, or information that they found, if they, whatever, if they found a piece of clothing or something. It just was never quite enough. They just never had enough information. They never had enough physical description of what he looked like or anything. They had nothing. They had nothing to go on. And so I think that was a lot of the reason. It was just the era in which it occurred, and a few little things of luck, per se. And again, another ace. We have 3 aces here, and all of them came out reversed. Three aces, all of them coming out reversed. So that to me is, they really didn't have a leg to stand on at the very beginning of this. They really didn't even know what was going on at the beginning. That could also mean that there was something in the beginning that they missed, because I'm really, again, I'm staring at that Ace of Pentacles and I'm thinking to myself, that could potentially be a key piece of evidence. It's got the sun behind it. It's got the the shape of the sun behind it. Was there something given to them in the beginning that they dismissed, and that was kind of, a domino effect for the rest of the case? And again, another one. So it could be that as well. There could have been something given to them in the beginning that they totally dismissed, or didn't quite understand, or didn't get it, or didn't do what they were supposed to. Maybe they were overwhelmed, and it just kind of went downhill from there. But it was almost like failure from the get-go. Failure from the get-go. And then we've got that female again. We've got mom. So I do think that there's mom issues coming up. All right. So now, yeah, so I think the police techniques were limited. All right. Okay, so I want to ask why and or how the victims were chosen. Was this opportunity crimes? Was it targeted crimes? I'm curious to see how the crimes, or how the victims were chosen. How were the victims chosen? How were the victims chosen? Right here. I think that there might have been some planning in the fact that they were workers, but I think as far as the workers were concerned, they weren't chosen. They were at random. This is a decision card. This is a plain decision card. This is like that card where you have something to decide on and you need to do that before you can go on to the next step. So this coming out, and the fact that it's coming out reversed, and we've got another night card. We've got the dark skies. We've got the moon. We've got the blindfold. They didn't see it coming. So that tells me that he probably came up from behind them. They definitely did not see it coming. He would probably stalk them a little bit when they were out and about. It's almost like they were just really at the wrong place at the wrong time. I don't think that they specifically were chosen. He was in that area and they kind of stepped into his territory and he caught them off guard. Like I said, they never seen him. I don't think that they ever laid eyes on him. And so it was kind of like, it was kind of planned, but not necessarily, if that makes sense. So he knew what kind of person he was targeting, but he didn't know who it was going to be. That's kind of what I think with that. So definitely, I don't think the specific women that he did kill had any personal meaning to him. I don't think he knew them or anything like that, but I think that there's a reason why he targeted the workers, and I'm going to ask that next. And so, again, the little bit of planning to me, and this also is a card of teamwork. So this would kind of go with that theory that he worked with other people, but I don't think he did. I really don't. I don't think he did. I don't think that he was the type, because I'm looking at him as being this person here on the stool, and he is kind of separated from them. Yes, this is a working together card, but you can tell that there is definitely a distinction between him and other people. So I think that other people, these two here, contributed to what he was doing. Okay, it was teamwork in the sense of an experience that he may have had early on in life with a mother, with a relationship, and they potentially contributed to how he came out, how he ended up doing what he did. But I don't think it was teamwork as in he had conspirators that he was, killing with. I don't think it was anything like that. I think he was completely and totally 100% responsible for these killings by himself. He is in that sunlight. They are off in the dark. Okay, so definitely I feel like those two other individuals are other people that have caused issues in his life. All right, so I do want to ask, why specifically the workers? Why were they victims? Why were they targeted? Were they just easy targets? I kind of feel like there's something going on with potentially mom, maybe being in that same field, and him having some issues with mom. But let's see what the cards say. All right, so we've got, I know nudity is common in tarot cards, but, okay, so, why the workers? Why the workers? All right. Queen of Wands. See, again, I feel like this is that mother figure. This is that mom. And with that fire like that, I do feel like there is extreme, I take that fire, especially with it coming out reversed, I take that fire as extreme anger. That is extreme anger that he has towards these women, okay? And it stems, I think, from a maternal figure on his end. And I'm not quite getting if she was a worker herself, but there's definitely anger at her that's causing him this, creating this motivation or creating this want to do this. I don't necessarily know if this was an easy decision for him to decide who to kill. I know that sounds kind of cold, but I feel like, I don't know. I don't really feel like this was something that he just randomly, this was something that he put planning into. And he thought about it. Definitely something that he put planning to and he thought about it. The World card. The World card. Endings, beginnings. Circle of life. Circle of life. Beginning, the end. Somebody who gave him life. Somebody who gave him life, his mother. And then he takes life. So she gives him life and he takes life. It's like a circle. I feel like this has something to do with his mom. And then, is this the mom younger? The Princess of Swords. Was his mom a worker? Was his mom a worker? Is his mom a worker? Wow, that's interesting. So we've got the family, all right? So we've got mom, happy family, husband, kids, rainbow, happy feelings. And then we have heartache, torment, sadness. And then we have money issues, a female, balancing, juggling, having difficulties. I feel like we're seeing a story here. I feel like we're seeing that maybe he had originally a somewhat normal childhood in the very, very beginning, but then something happened. Maybe something happened to the dad. Something happened financially. There was some heartache, something devastating happened, and it changed his mom. And then I have to wonder if maybe she had to go to working to survive, to support him, and maybe that changed her abilities to take care of him as well. Maybe that just, maybe he didn't even stay with her anymore, but there's a story here. I mean, it's like once upon a time there was this happy family, and then all of a sudden something devastating took place, and she was never the same. And then we have this woman who comes out of the situation having to do things to survive and take care of herself and her child, or her children maybe, that she didn't necessarily have to do when it was like this. So I do feel like there's something here coming full circle. It was almost like the anger, him being born and experiencing all these things, and then it coming out and him doing what he ended up doing. And I feel like there's a connection between the women. There's a connection with anger towards his mother, towards these women. And again, I don't really think that it wasn't anything that he decided to do just randomly. I think this is something that, he thought about for a while, but I also feel like this 7 could also indicate that there were more than those 5 victims that we know of. So I think that there's definitely, I looked at that 8 of Wands as another indication that there were more than 5, and I'm looking at this 7 that there's more than that 5. So I do feel like there's more than what we know, and I think it's stemming from these issues, these internal issues that he had, and I feel like there's also something with his physical appearance too, like I said earlier, that was making him. It's almost like he was just being, everything was against him, rough childhood, and then, maybe rough adolescence, and then, physically maybe not looking how he was hoping to look, or not looking the way he wanted to look, and then having these other challenges and potential relationships. And that anger was just enough to boil him over. And so especially towards females, he definitely had this anger towards females, which could also explain why he went towards the organs that he went for. There was something. Now I want to... All right, let me see, what else do I have here as far as questions? Okay. There was another question that I wanted to ask, but I forgot. How were the victims chosen? More than one killer. Medical background. I don't think that he was a doctor or anything like that. Oh, all right, let me ask another question really quick about the medical background. I wanted to ask with this deck. I don't think I did. A lot of cards at night. Yeah, so I definitely don't think that he had a medical background at all. I think that he, like I said, if he did have any knowledge or any know-how, it was self-taught or self-learned. I don't think that he was a doctor or anything like that. And again, I've got a guy with a cape. He's got an eye bandage or a head bandage or something on. So I feel like the head bandage or the eye bandage, definitely represents, in this case, his mental state. I feel like there was some there was something wrong with obviously his mental state, but it goes deeper than just he was depressed or sad or whatever. Like, he had something severely wrong with him, and he had been dealing with that his entire life. And I do feel like he felt alone. He was kind of isolated. He was alone, and I think that is because of his mental state, his emotional, his personality, also his physical appearance. So there was a lot of things, I feel like, that were just getting him from all sides. Literally how this man is surrounded by these wands. He was just kind of attacked on all sides, all aspects, and it was just enough to make him snap. But I don't think that he had any medical knowledge or know-how. And then again, I mean, it just keeps, to me, I keep getting the moon, the nighttime. There's something more important about the nighttime than just the disguise. That was the time that he worked, you know. Obviously, it's easier to do things under the cover of darkness. But there's something in this particular reading that keeps pointing to the nighttime as something pivotal. We've got the dogs howling. What's so important about the nighttime? What's so important about the night? What's so important about the nighttime? The Star. The Queen of Cups. We've got the Star and the Queen of Cups. And, you know, with this particular Star card, I always felt like this here looks like a clock. There's something about that time of day that was important to him. That was why he had to do it at night. It wasn't just that it was the cover of darkness. Yes, that helped. But there's something else to me. And I think it goes back to his mother. There's something else that's important about the timing that played a role. Yeah, there's definitely, I don't know, it's kind of it's weird. This is actually getting me more interested in Jack the Ripper than I ever thought I would be. Alright, so I'm gonna go ahead and end this video with one last question. Why did he stop? Why did Jack the Ripper stop? What happened? What made him stop killing? Why did he stop killing? Alright. Three of Cups reversed. Judgment. Interesting. Nine of Swords. Hierophant. Wow. So I'm starting to get these repeat cards. But the Judgment. The Judgment to me makes me feel like, you know, sometimes this could be looked at as, I don't want to say a death card, but it can represent death. It can represent rebirth, renewal. It's got a red cross on it, so sometimes it can be health. It can be all sorts of things. And so, but this coming out, you know, this is one of those cards where you reap what you sow, right? Oh, I'm so sorry. My phone has been beeping the whole video. I apologize. It's kind of one of those cards where you reap what you sow. If you've been doing good, then no problem, you'll be rewarded. If you haven't been doing good, then you're going to suffer the consequences of that as well. So it's kind of one of those cards. And I feel like with it coming out reversed, he ended up suffering some consequences for his actions, whether it be in this world or the next. And I feel like we're talking about the next, to be honest with you. I do feel like there's something here pointing towards, you know, with the celebration card, the Three of Cups, I feel like it was a time to celebrate, because at the end, when it was done and they figured that he was not going to be doing it anymore, it was like a celebration, but it was a bittersweet celebration because 5 women had been killed, possibly more. And on top of that, I'm sure that caused fear in people that they did not experience before. You know, probably women weren't so eager to go out on the streets at 1 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning, and walk home or go someplace and not have that in the back of their head. So I think that once they knew for sure he had stopped, it was a huge relief, but with everlasting effects. And I do think that it's a possibility that he potentially passed on. But there was something there, and to me, sometimes that judgment does represent that. In some cases, depending on what it is. But in this situation, I feel like there was some sort of justice, maybe almost like a universal justice that came in and kind of said, you know, hey, you know, this isn't going to stop if we don't do it, because I don't think that the police were able to do it or to stop it. And I kind of have I have to wonder if I almost have to wonder if there was something that he did by his own hands. Did he maybe commit suicide? Did he harm himself because of this one here? Yeah, despair and cruelty. We've got the Nine of Swords. So mental issues, dealing with mental issues for a long time. This may have made it worse. Okay. These killings and what he was doing may have actually exacerbated his mental illness and made it worse, actually, is kind of what I'm wondering. So I don't think that he was able to cope with his feelings. This came out reversed earlier, and I felt like that was a blockage to be able to cope with what he was dealing with. And I think that when he killed, I think really it ended up making things 100 times worse for him, mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually. And that makes me wonder if he did something to himself. And, you know, then we've got the Hierophant, and we've got that bird. We've got the you know, to me it represents peace. And this guy here, it just... that peace to me is a symbol where it's almost like, you know, was he seeking peace? Did he do something to seek peace? Was he not getting what he was hoping from by committing these crimes? Was there something just so badly broken inside of this man that, you know, it just... I don't know. I feel like we're dealing with somebody that had a lot of severe issues. Obviously, he's a killer, so he has issues. We know that. But I think that this was something that stemmed from way back in his childhood. And I think that one thing I did notice is that no kings... I don't think we had any king... Well, we had that one King of Cups that I thought was the police officer, or I assumed is the police officer. But I've not had any paternal figure show up in this reading. This was all about mom. This was all about mom and early relationship with mom and something going awry. I take that back. The Ten of Cups had the man in there. So there could have been a father early on, possibly a father early on that maybe he died of illness, or I don't know, left. I don't know, but there's something going on with this anger towards his mother and potentially a relationship, but not a good relationship at that. And just all of these feelings and eventually it coming to a boiling point to where he could not deal with it. He couldn't cope with it. So I kind of believe that is what we're dealing with. I do think it's a man. I cannot give a name, but I do feel like someone in his life recognized him. Or not recognized him, but felt like he could have been responsible. I don't think he was recognized by any of the witnesses that came forward and said that they seen him. They could have very well seen him, but they didn't have enough of him to describe him. So they very well could have seen him. But I think that there was somebody in his personal life that suspected he could have been the killer, and that could have actually had led to despair and just kind of ending it and you know, finishing it. So let me just ask one more question. Did Jack the Ripper harm himself? Did he harm himself? So we've got a 5 of defeat. It says defeat on there, the 5 of swords. So it literally on this deck, I don't know if you can see it, but here on the bottom it says defeat. So I feel like that's an indication that this man could have potentially harmed himself in the end, because this came out reversed. And I have to wonder if he just gave up. Did he just give up? Was it just too much for him to bear anymore and he just could not do it? He was seeking some sort of peace and solace and redemption, and he maybe felt that the only way he could get that was by, ending his own life. So I don't know. That's how I'm going to end this reading, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. I've got the next probably 5 or 6 videos already lined up, so I'm going to work on those. But if you guys have any suggestions, feel free to put them in the comment section. And I thank you for watching this. I know this was a different one. This was kind of a hard one too. And like I said, I didn't know much about Jack the Ripper, so this was kind of interesting and new for me. Oh, I forgot to use, oh, darn it. I forgot to use my Dark Mirror Oracle. Let me just pull one. Let me just pull one Dark Mirror Oracle to see kind of what card can overall describe Jack the Ripper. I mean, I pulled this deck out specifically for this reading, so I want to pull at least one card. All right. Blinded to the pain. Blinded to the pain. So this was definitely a man that carried some pain. He had a lot of issues. And then we've got another, and this is 13. This is the number 13. So we've got another blindfold. We've got flies. Yeah, I feel like those flies on that woman's chest and those cuts are just, those cuts could, again, kind of go with the self-harm that we just talked about. And then, the wounds, several, this is the number 13. So those wounds to me were there for a long time, and it just seemed to continue and add on and add on and add on, and it just got to be too much. Too much for him to deal with anymore. Too much for him to deal with anymore. So I think that we're looking at a guy that was really, really mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually unstable. And unfortunately, he was living in an era that, probably wasn't the most helpful for a person with any kind of mental illness or depression or anything like that. So kind of unfortunate that these 5 women had to lose their lives, or however many women. I think it was more than 5, but 5 that we know of for sure. Unfortunate that they had to pay the price for his mental unstableness. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this, and I will see you soon. I'm probably not going to stick to my Saturday schedule. I'm just trying to pop out as many videos as I possibly can, so expect them randomly if that's okay. And so I'll see you next time. Have a great night.